Hello everyone, this is Stella Shalamova, your real estate specialist, and today we have another episode where I introduce my experts, which we have an honor to have Michael. He's a real estate attorney for over 25 years in New York State area, and like I said, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much. I always like the opportunity to meet people and to let people know what I do and how it gets done. And it's great to help people get into their homes or to sell their homes and move on with their lives.
For 25 years,
Yes.
I can imagine you have so much.
And that is all I do. For 25 years, I do real estate. I represent buyers, sellers, banks, the lending institutions, and commercial buyers in New York City, the 5 boroughs, Long Island, Westchester, and that's where my knowledge is.
So, Michael, can you share with us what is it so important to have as a real estate attorney when you represent buyers or sellers? Why not just a regular attorney?
A regular attorney tends to look at the contract, oh, it's just a contract, and they mark it up, most of them either in an adversarial way or they don't even look at it. They figure, oh, what's the point? I can just sign it. Or an adversarial way, they argue every point. In the contract, there are things that do matter to the client, and this is what we try to do. We want to make sure that the client is protected, to make sure that they're going to get a house free of liens and judgments, and that it's going to have a proper CO and all the filings are proper. The contract has to state that the mortgage contingency is the correct mortgage contingency. Whereas sometimes I see guys that don't change a thing in a contract. They never even reviewed it. They didn't know you could. And other times I see them pick on every single word. And the result of that a lot of times is that the deal falls through. As a real estate attorney, I know what your goal is. Your goal is to get into the home. And that is my goal, to get you in there. And therefore, I know what is important and what is not as important, and that we can get passed through.
Amazing. So as you see, we're working with a lot of buyers right now. It's, so many buyers that are actually looking to purchase the properties. It's not enough inventory, but tell me some advice or tips that you can share for the buyers when they're purchasing a new property.
All right. Well, for buyers, knowledge is the best thing to have. So the first thing you need to know is, what is your budget? You need to know how much money you have set aside. You need to know, you should get a prior mortgage approval to know how much money you can take a mortgage on. And know also where you might be able to borrow some money if you find yourself falling a little short. Maybe gifts from relatives who can help you out a bit. You also need to know what is it that you need. Realistic, okay? You have to be realistic in your search. So what is important? You sit down and say, I want these items in my house. And that's what you have to keep an eye on, and you have to look. You can't get nervous. The house that's for you, you're going to get. Don't worry about it. Very important though, and I have what's called the 5% rule, and it's a very good rule. My 5% rule is, you don't lose a house for 5%. You're purchasing a house, most of the time your intention is to stay there 10, 20 years. If the house is 5% over your budget, it's not going to make a difference in 10 years from now, all right? So if you feel, you want the seller to fix something and they don't want to fix it, and it's let's say a $2,000 item and you're buying an $800,000 house, don't lose the house because you're stuck on one stupid item. Get the house, fix it, and in the end, you'll be much happier.
That's a great advice. So for sellers, any other tips that when they put the property on the market as well?
Sellers have to know a few things. Number one, when they decide to sell, they have to have an idea where they're going and when they're going to be able to move out, because that's very important, especially in this market. Buyers lock in their mortgage and they need to close. So they need the sellers out. So you first of all need to have an idea where you're going. Second thing about a seller is, depending on how you obtain the house, is this your parents' house or even your grandparents' house? Then you need to have the surrogate papers and all the papers in line so that you'll be able to sell the house when your time comes. We need to be able to show the title company. if it was a spouse and you lost your spouse, you're going to need the death certificates. All right. You also very well, if it's a surrogate, you might need to have papers from surrogate court authorizing you to sign the contract. Very often I find people cannot sign the contract because they're not authorized. All right. And then finally, you need to know what, if any, judgments you might have against yourselves and what mortgages, so that we can make sure everything is going to be paid off and you'll be able to sell the house the way you want to.
That's a great information. A lot of, tips and a lot of knowledge that we need to know which documents to prepare, even that before you put the property on the market. Any advice, any tips that, that you can share with us? It's a first big thing that the buyers are buying. It's a property that sellers are selling, they emotionally attached. So any tips or advice that you would love to share in these transactions?
For buyers, I always ask my buyers, when you walk into the house, did it feel like it was yours? If it does, that's a very good sign. And then let's focus on what you really need to make sure is in the house and not all the extras on the wish list. Okay? Because we want to make sure we get the house. This is a very tight market and I see people bidding over price.
Yes.
We also want to make sure that it's going to come in at the appraised value because we need to get the mortgage. So don't be nervous. You will get your house, but you want to make sure of it. With the seller, it's the hardest thing for people to let go of houses. And
I've seen that a lot.
I've seen that a lot. And I always advise my clients, hire a moving company and get people to help you clean out the house. Because that a lot of times stalls the closing. People find that they can't do it. So, and there can be penalties, and we don't want that. So, just know that that you have to be thankful to the house for all that it's given you, and it's time to move on.
I guess, that's the important information. There's so much that we need to know, either you're buying or selling. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today to share your knowledge with my clients, and it's a pleasure having you as always.
It's my pleasure, and this is what I enjoy. I do real estate because I truly enjoy it. I love seeing people getting into new homes. I love seeing people moving on with their lives, and I understand that for most people this is a once, at maximum 3 times transaction in their lifetime, and that they need to be heard and they need to be secure in what they're doing. Therefore, I always give out my cell number.
That's amazing.
It's 917-880-6445. And I tell people, call me. If I don't pick up, text me. I will definitely call you back.
Right.
All right? I want you to know that you have access to your attorney and that he's looking out for you.
That's amazing. To have a personal information of the attorney and personal contact number, meaning that any questions that we can always reach you and
all the time.
You can help them. Amazing. Okay. It's a pleasure again. And
thank you very much.
I'm so grateful that you're here
thank you, Stella.
to share
it's
this
always
information.
a pleasure coming out here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.